And as we all know, the MLS story is decades in the making, not just with blockchain and what's to come, but what has already passed and what is here now. And it's a provocative journey, and it's full of people that have helped shape the industry as we know it today. And our next speaker is somebody that is familiar to probably all of this. He is known as one of the conceptualizers and the founders of the broker public portal. He's had lots of time in the MLS and the association industry, and I just learned recently that he's also a Grammy Award winner. And so please help me welcome to the stage Mr. Cameron Payne.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, who's still awake? Come on, fess up. So I've got 15 minutes to tell a room full of leaders everything I know about being a leader. It's a piece of cake. We're going to get this done. But I think I want to start with a quote by the famous Roy Rogers. Roy Rogers said, "There are three kinds of people in the world. There are those who learn by reading. There are those few who learn by observation. And then there's everybody else who has to pee on the electric fence for themselves." Right? We deal with people like this all the time. And I realized I might be one of them because I forgot my clicker. Here we go. So we're going to talk about leadership. And if I were to go around the room, I would get 1,000 different opinions on what a leader is. And that's fine. We're going to have 1,001 because here's mine. I think there are 4 elements to being a leader. I think you have to have the courage to have vision. I think you have to have conviction to build support for your vision. I think you have to be able to persevere through failure. And lastly, you need to execute on the vision. Now, of these 4, the first one, having vision, is the most important. Why is it most important? Because for a true leader, you always have to be looking out into the future. A leader is exploring the next. They are saying, what comes next? Why does it come next? Or why doesn't it come next? It is truly an attempt to rationalize how do we make science fiction into science fact. And I'd be willing to bet that none of you running an association or an MLS today thinks to yourself when you sit down at your desk, this is just like the USS Enterprise, baby, yeah. Right? No, it doesn't feel like that, but it is. Because if you go out and do something tomorrow that is brand new, never been done before, isn't that science fiction? Isn't that creating science fact out of science fiction? I think it is. Conviction to build support. Just as you need vision to be a leader, you can't only have vision. Because people who only have vision without supporters and everything else, what do we call them? They're a crackpot, right? You don't want to be that. So it's really important that you build conviction and you work to bring other people into your fold. There's a wonderful quote by Doris Kearns Goodwin. She's the author of A Team of Rivals. And Doris says, leadership is about presenting others with a vision of what they might achieve. I love that quote because it's all about bringing others into your vision. We think about vision usually in terms of success. We look at a person's successes and we say, amazing, what an incredible leader. But success is really only the end result of a process. And that process is one of failure. Abject, embarrassing, expensive failure. And that's okay. But failure is so painful that we often forget that it is a necessary prelude to success. So keep in mind that if you get up after failing and if you improve after failing, that's part of the process and it will help you lead to success because you're constantly improving. So you have a vision and you set it out over here and your vision is out over here. It's absolutely critical that you not carry a static vision all the way through that process. If you're bringing really good people into your fold, if you're helping others see your vision will be improved through contact with them, right? You want your vision to expand because no one starts with a perfect vision. No one starts with a flawless vision. So you have to be able to be nimble. You have to be able to allow your vision to be expanded, diminished, whatever that is, as long as you keep that core from the beginning to the end. There's a lot of room for flexibility and the dreaded word, compromise. So I've got a quote for you, and I love this quote. And it skipped the quote. Let's try it again. There it is. Can we go back one? Thank you. I want you to read this quickly. And I just asked the question to you, why is it that we always seem to think something is impossible right up until someone goes out and does it? What is there in your industry right now that everyone says is impossible just because no one's done it yet? This story today, my 15 minutes, is going to be about telling you something that was impossible. It is the story of an aircraft that, by all accounts, never should have been built. It was an impossible story. It was an impossible vision, but leadership helped make this a reality. So let me set the scene for you. It's the 1950s. We are in a Cold War with the Soviet Union. We've decided we need to see inside the Soviet Union. We need to look at what's going on. There, of course, are no satellites at this time, so the only way we can do it is with an airplane. We have an airplane that can do it. This airplane's defense, the U-2, its only defense is that it flies so high that the Soviet missiles can't reach it. But by 1957, we knew that Soviet missile technology was coming along so quickly that it was only a matter of time before those missiles could reach the U-2. So they put out an RFP to the industry, and in 1959, it was won by the Lockheed Corporation. And it was won with their A-12, A for Archangel plane design. And just as a gut check here, did they wait until Francis Gary Powers' plane was shot down to start thinking about this? No. They started thinking about it well in advance. Because sure enough, the following year, after 1959, where they wanted a plane that would fly even higher and faster, they did lose a U-2 over the Soviet Union. So they built the A-12, which has become, since the evolution, is called the SR-71. Some of you may know it. It is one of the most remarkable planes in the world. These are some of the speed records that it set. St. Louis to Cincinnati in 8 minutes. It would take me longer to get back to my room. This is incredible, right? This is incredible. And let me tell you the more incredible thing. The perspective on this is this plane was designed in 1959. How many of you were alive in 1959? Okay, some of you are lying, but that's okay. That's okay. I want you to think about the design of 1959. TVs filled entire cabinets. Computers filled entire rooms. The biggest design thing going on with cars was what? Fins, right? Big fins. The engineers in 1959 designed with slide rules. Slide rules. How on earth did they create a plane like this? This does not look out of place today. It still looks like a space plane today. This was designed 60 years ago by men and women with slide rules. You know how it was built? They never stopped to consider how they couldn't do it. But I'll tell you, it just so happens that I have the design studies of this program. You are seeing the final result of this airplane. I'm going to show you the failures that they had to have in order to successfully build this aircraft. So this is the first design study. Look at that date, 1958. They design an airplane that they think can go Mach 3, which is 2,300 miles an hour, which incidentally is faster than a 50 caliber bullet, which travels 1,700 miles an hour. This plane flies faster than a bullet. And by the way, it flies between 80 and 100,000 feet in the air. So for perspective, if you're standing on the ground and you're looking up and you can see an airplane so small up there that you just see the contrail, that's about 35,000 feet. This plane flies 3 times that height at 3 times the speed of sound. And what they realized with this first design was that if you try to fly any normal plane at that speed, it will melt. Just the pure friction with the air will melt aluminum and steel. They needed something else. That something else turned out to be titanium. But there were problems. No one had ever worked titanium in anywhere near the scale necessary to build an airplane. So they had to invent the process to build titanium, to mold it, craft it, etc. The other problem, small one, was that most of the titanium deposits were in the Soviet Union. They got around that too. So these were some very clever engineers, and they had a little help from some shell companies and the CIA on that. Still, they did not let it stop them. So, next design, failure. And as we go through these, I want you to take a look at the fuel weight and the takeoff gross weight. This is what the engineers are wrestling with, right? They need to figure out how to get an airplane that needs engines and fuel to fly at Mach 3 at 100,000 feet and have a range of 4,000 miles. And so they're going to wrestle with this throughout these design elements. The last plane was lighter. They're getting bigger now. They're realizing, okay, we've got to put more stuff in. But it's a failure. Well, they realized it was a failure. So it was much too big. So they trimmed back. This one's a third the size, but it's a failure. Again, failure. So now the engineers are well into what I call the cycle of compromise. You have an aircraft body, you have engines, you have to have fuel for the engines, which adds weight, which means you might need bigger engines or more engines, which adds more fuel, which adds weight. This is the cycle of compromise. And just like a corporation, an aircraft succeeds or fails by how you manage the limitations on your performance. There is no such thing as a perfect design. It's a myth. No such thing as a perfect design. There's only managing compromises in a way that best suits your goal. Failure. 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 But they're close. And so this idea for them was really close. They thought this one could do it. It could fly really high, really fast. But there was only one problem. Remember that problem with the Soviet missiles? That the Soviet missiles could in fact get up to hit something at that height? They could. And they knew that it was only a matter of time before it could hit it wherever it may fly. Its speed was not enough. They needed something else. What do you think that something else was? There we go. Stealth. They understood that what they had to do was make this aircraft not invisible. That was never the goal. They just needed to make it unseen by the radar long enough so that by the time the radar finally saw it, mathematically, there was no chance they would ever catch it. This plane has flown hundreds of missions over hostile territory and never been shot down. I want you to look at the bottom of this slide. It says a 22% increase in empty weight compared to the A-11. Cost of stealth. This is the compromise they made. That weight that they added would affect the amount of fuel it could carry, would affect how far the range was, etc. These were the compromises to the design they made. It didn't matter to the original vision. The original vision was conducting surveillance of the Soviet Union and exiting safely. By compromising, they got that. And the man responsible for this is an incredible man. His name is Kelly Johnson. And Kelly Johnson was the chief engineer at Lockheed, and he is the ultimate exemplar of all four of those leadership aspects that I gave to you. He had the vision, and he brought support for the vision by getting the right engineers in a tight little team and then secluding themselves in something called the Skunk Works off-site at Lockheed. The seclusion was intentional because he got the support of his CEO to be away from the meddling that we all know top brass love to do, right? Also away from the meddling that we all know clients love to do. They want things their way, etc. He just separated everyone from that. So he kept his vision clean, he built support for the vision, he persevered through all those failures I went through, and lastly, he was able to execute on his vision because he was willing to accept compromise. He was willing for his vision to be improved based on the failures that they had. So at the end of the day, vision is in this room. Vision and leadership, we're surrounded by it. Can anyone tell me what my shirt refers to? Harry Potter. This was the train station, 9 3/4, right? I love the story of Harry Potter, but more, I love how J.K. Rowling has been an incredible leader and a visionary. It's all around us. So be brave, understand that sometimes, a true leader understands that the best vision to follow may not be your own. Thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of the show. Thank you.